Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at Pax Pamir Second Edition. This is a 1 to 5 player card drafting area influence historical game where you take the role of 19th century Afghan leaders trying to forge a new state after the collapse of the Durrani Empire. You'll be playing cards into your court, taking actions, spending and gaining rupees, placing tribes or spies, adding armies or roads, and changing loyalty, trying to become the most influential leader. How do you become the most influential leader and win the game? By having the most victory points when one of the two in-game conditions are met. Either you have a 4 or more victory point lead and the game ends immediately, or after the final dominance check. Now that we know what the winning condition is, let's take a look at the components, setup, and how gameplay works in Pax Pamir Second Edition. Now let's look at the components. You have the map or main board, market board, coalition blocks, pink are British, green are Afghan, and yellow are Russian. Favored suit marker, ruler tokens. In each player color you have the player board, loyalty dial, victory point cylinder with the gold print, and cylinders, court cards, event cards, Wakan cards, rupees, and then finally we have your player aids and rulebook. Now let's take a look at the setup. We're going to be setting this up for a 3-player game, which takes 7 steps. Step 1, place the map and market board. Place the map in the center of the play area and the market board above the map. Step 2, place the favored suit marker. The empire has just collapsed and local authorities have taken over, so the favored suit marker goes next to the political location on the map, or the crown. Step 3, create the draw deck. Separate the court cards and event cards. Shuffle the court cards and create 6 stacks of 5 plus the number of players. Since we're setting up a 3-player game, we will create 6 stacks of 8 cards. Then you will separate the dominance event cards from the regular event cards. You will shuffle the regular event cards and draw 2 to place in stack 2, and draw 1 for each stack 3 through 6. Then you will shuffle each of these 6 stacks. And then finally, you will put 1 dominance card at the very bottom of each stack 3 through 6, and stack all of your cards together with stack 1 on top. Step 4, create the market. Draw cards from the top of the draw deck, filling top to bottom, then left to right, and then place the deck to the right of the market. Step 5, get in place player components. Choose a color and get the corresponding player board, loyalty dial, cylinders, and victory point cylinders, along with 4 rupees. Place the victory point cylinder on 0 on the victory point track. Cylinders will go on the player board, and your loyalty dial will go next to your player board. Step 6, create resource pools and place ruler tokens. You'll create a resource pool for rupees and coalition blocks next to the map, and place your ruler tokens on the corresponding locations on the map. Step 7, choose starting loyalty. Randomly choose a player to start, and then going clockwise, players will choose their starting loyalty and adjust their dials. The player that chooses their loyalty last will be the start player. So in this case, blue chose British, yellow chose Russian, and black chose British. Black will now be our starting player. Now let's take a look at the gameplay. A game consists of turns until one of the 2 in-game conditions are met. The game ends immediately when a player is ahead by 4 victory points or more, or the game will end after the final dominance check is resolved. The player with the most victory points will win. Now let's look at player turns. There are 2 phases to a player's turn: the action phase, where the player performs up to 2 actions, and the cleanup phase, where you will check limits and refill the market. Now let's look at these 2 phases in more detail. Starting with phase 1. The action phase. During this phase, players will perform up to 2 actions. The 4 types of actions you may perform are purchase a card, play a card, take a card action, and bonus action. This is if you have a card in your court with the favored suit. The bonus action does not count toward your 2-action limit. Now let's look at these 4 types of actions in detail, starting with purchasing a card. When purchasing a card, you would purchase a card from the market and add it to your hand. You would pay the rupee cost on the column, placing the rupees on the cards to the left of the card you purchased. If there is a blank space to the left of the card that you purchase, you would place the rupee in the second row in that same column. Keep in mind that if military is favored, cost for cards are doubled. If the card had rupees on top of it, you would gain those rupees when you purchase the card. You cannot purchase a card you added money to this turn, and buying an event card or dominance event card gets that event card or dominance event card played immediately. Next, play a card. You would play a card from your hand to your court. You would first check to see if there is a ruler in the region listed on the card. If there's not, you may play it freely. If there is a ruler in the region listed on the card, you must pay a bribe to that player equal to the number of tribes in that region. Keep in mind that the ruler can negotiate to waive the cost. Also, card exchanges are not part of the negotiation, and negotiations are never binding. After you've checked for rulers, you would add the card to your court to the right or left of your court cards. The order of your cards in your court are important when playing or moving spies. If you choose to play a card that is a patriot with a different loyalty, you will change your loyalty immediately. These would be the cards with the solid color behind the name of the card. Then you would resolve the impact the card or person has. This is located in the top right of the card. If there's a camel icon, then you would place a road. This is signified by placing a coalition block of your loyalty on any border of that region, laying the block on its side. If there is a gun icon, then you would place an army. To signify this, you would place a coalition block of your loyalty in that region standing up. If there is a leverage icon, then you would gain 2 rupees from the bank. Keep in mind that if this card is ever discarded, you would lose 2 rupees immediately. If there is a cylinder with a card under it, you would place a spy. You would take one of your cylinders and place the cylinder on a card of any players in the same region. These could be your cards or other players' cards. If there is a cylinder with a crown, you would place a tribe. To signify this, you would place a cylinder in this region. And then finally, if there is a colored suit, you would move the favored suit marker to that suit. The third type of action are card actions. You are allowed to take one of the actions from any card in your court. Each of your cards can only be used for one action each on each turn. If you have to pay a cost to take the card action, you would pay the money to the market. You would place a rupee going top to bottom, right to left. If you wish to take an action from a card that has more spies of another player, you would have to pay that player money equal to the number of spies as a bribe. Again, this can be negotiated. Now let's look at the card-based actions. Tax. This would be the rupee icon on the card. This will allow you to take rupees equal to the card's rank from players with court cards in a region you rule or from the market. If you take them from the market, the region does not have to match. Keep in mind of tax shelters when taking this action. The number of gold stars a player has protects that number of rupees from their supply. To rule a region, you must have at least one tribe and the most ruling pieces, which are tribes and armies, in that region. When that happens, you would take the ruler token, and then you can build tax and extract bribes. Gift. This is the diamond icon. You would pay 2, 4, or 6 rupees to place a cylinder on your loyalty dial for your coalition that will gain you 1 influence each. Keep in mind that if you ever change loyalty, you will lose your gifts. Build. This is the building icon. You would place 1, 2, or 3 armies and/or roads in any regions you rule for a cost of 2, 4, or 6. Move or march. This is the flag icon. You will move an army and/or spy based on the rank of the card. The army may move to a territory where there is a road, and spies can move to the left or right to adjacent players' cards. The rank of a card is the number of stars in the top left corner. Betray. This is the knife icon. You would pay 2 and discard a card where you have a spy. All spies would then go back to their supply. Then you may take that card as a prize if you have that loyalty, or you can change that loyalty to take the card as a prize. The ones that can be taken as a prize are the ones that have a color at the bottom of the card, along with an upside down symbol of a coalition. When you take it as a prize, you would turn it upside down and place it under your loyalty dial. Battle. This is the explosion icon. You may battle on a card or a region. You would remove spies, or tribes, or roads, or armies equal to the rank. You cannot remove your loyalty, so you could not remove army or roads of the same coalition color, or remove tribes that share your loyalty. Keep in mind that you cannot remove more than you have in the battle. And then the fourth type of action you can take is a bonus action. This is a free action. Each card matching the favored suit can be used for 1 action per card. This action does not count towards your action limit. Once you have taken your 2 actions, we would go into phase 2, the cleanup phase. The cleanup phase has 4 steps. First, check your court size. You are allowed to have 3 plus the number of purple stars in your court as your court limit. If you've went over your limit during your turn, at this time you would discard down to your limit. Step 2, check your hand size. You are allowed to have 2 plus the number of blue stars as your hand limit. If you have gone over your hand limit during your turn, you would discard down to your hand limit at this time. Step 3, check event cards. If any events are in the leftmost column of the market, you would play out the effects on the top of the card or impact. Keep in mind that any money on the card would stay in that spot. If there are 2 events that trigger at the same time, you would do the top one first. And then step 4, you would refill the market. You would slide cards in each row in the market to the left if there are any blank spaces in the market. Then you would fill in the market like in setup, top to bottom and left to right. Keep in mind that money will slide with the cards. When refilling the market, if 2 dominance checks are revealed, then we are in a period of instability, which you would then immediately do a dominance check and discard both dominance check cards. If it happens that this is the final dominance card, then it is the final dominance check. Now let's look at some of the special rules that could take place during a turn, starting with overthrow. If you lose your last tribe in a region, then you would end up losing all of your political cards in that same region, and vice versa. So if you lose all of your political cards in a particular region, then you would lose all of your tribes in that region. Card special ability. These special abilities are located in a box in the bottom part of the card. These abilities take precedent over rules and is active as long as the card is in your court. Ruling a region. You must have at least 1 tribe and the most ruling pieces, which are tribes and armies, in that region. When that happens, you would take the ruler token, and then you may build, tax, and extract bribes in that region. Loyalty change. You may perform a loyalty change by playing patriots or betraying cards with prizes. When doing so, you would return your current loyalty gifts, prizes, and patriots, and then turn your dial. And then finally, the star special effects. For each gold star in your court, you would have a corresponding tax shelter for that number of rupees in your supply. For red stars in your court, you would use this as a tiebreaker at the end of the game if 2 players are tied on the victory point track. The number of purple stars in your court will allow you to have a larger court, and the number of blue stars in your court allow you to have a larger hand size. So it is the black player's turn. So in this case, the black player chose to purchase 2 cards from the market. Then it would go to the blue player's turn. And turns will continue until a dominant check occurs. Dominance check event cards are resolved when purchased or when they are triggered during cleanup. When triggered during cleanup, it is considered a time of instability. During a dominance check, you would check the coalition blocks. If one coalition has 4 or more coalition blocks than either of the other 2, then the check is successful. If not, it is unsuccessful. Then you would follow the following steps to resolve. If it was an unsuccessful dominance check, then the number of cylinders in play will score. The player with the most cylinders in play would get 3 victory points, and then the second most would get 1. If multiple players are tied, they would add the victory points together and then divide the number and share those victory points. If a dominance check is successful, then players loyal to that coalition will score based on their total influence. This is the sum of the gifts, prizes, and number of patriots. The player with the most influence in that coalition would get 5 victory points, the second most would get 3 victory points, and the third most would get 1. And again, if there is a tie, you would add the victory points together and then divide them amongst the players to share. After you've given the victory points in a successful dominance check, you would remove all the coalition blocks from the board. This is to signify a period of uneasy peace. Then turns would continue, and if any player has 4 or more victory points than the other players, then the game would end immediately. If not, you continue taking turns until the final dominance check. During the final dominance check, you would resolve the check the same as regular dominance checks, but points are doubled. So the most influence in a successful dominance check would get you 10 victory points. After the final dominance check, the player with the most victory points is the most influential leader and wins Pax Pamir Second Edition.